Okay, so last night we began to discuss about the Satipatthana objects, the four Satipatthana objects: Kaya, Vedana, Chitta, Dhamma, the body, feeling, consciousness, and Dhammas. Okay? So, of these four, we talk about Kaya. Kaya is the collection, a group of the elements that can be discerned throughout our physical body. Okay? So last night we already discussed about the earth element. So earth element is simply the nature of hardness, softness, or roughness and smoothness. Okay? So every time you discern this quality, hard, soft, rough, smooth, this is the earth element. Okay? And then the wind element is the nature of support. Okay? And when there's support, there's usually the sensations like pressure, tightness, stiffness, movement. Okay? Now, before we move on to discuss the fire element, now talk about the 6 types of internal wind element. Okay, so in the what is that? Mahahatipadopama Sutta, okay, Majjhima Nikaya. Okay, so in the sutta, the Venerable Sariputta talk about the elements. So when I talk about wind element, he mentioned the 6 type of internal wind element. Okay? So first one is upgoing wind. Okay? So it is the wind that support upwards. Okay? It causes burping, vomiting. Okay? Then the second one is the downgoing wind. Okay? So downgoing wind you experience is the opposite of upgoing wind. Okay? You experience it when you get nature's call. Okay? So this is responsible for when you're in the toilet, expelling excrement, urine, and so on. Okay? So and so you can note this wind element, upgoing, downgoing. Okay? That's why even when you go toilet also note. Okay? Your practice does not end outside the toilet. Go bring your mindfulness into the toilet. Okay? So third one is wind in the belly. Okay? So in our belly, the stomach, there's also the wind element. Okay? So this one Mahasi Sayadaw explained. This is the rising, falling. Okay? So in our stomach, there's the wind. So when you breathe in, your diaphragm pushes down. Your diaphragm got drawn down, right, in order to fill the lungs. So when the diaphragm got drawn down, it pushes down against the organs below it, including the stomach. Okay? So you get the rising. Okay? So when it pushes down, the wind element becomes strong. So you get rising. When you breathe out, the diaphragm get drawn back up. Okay? So the wind element weakens, so you get falling. And then there's fourth one is wind in the bowel. That means wind inside the intestines. Okay? These are the wind element responsible for pushing all the food that you eat, pushing it through the intestine to be digested. Okay? So in biology they call it this the peristalsis movement. This sometimes when this wind in the bowel is weak, so the food will move very slowly, or it may not move at all. Then you get constipation. But if it is too strong, then move too fast through the intestine, then you hear all the sound, crick crock, crick crock. Okay, you feel all the movement inside. You move very fast. It can even cause the downgoing wind to become strong. Okay? Then you get diarrhea. Okay? The fifth one is the wind element that runs through all the limbs, all the major and minor parts of your body. Okay? So throughout the body, there's wind element, all the time going through. Okay? So it causes movement, sitting down, standing up, bending, stretching, walking, jerking, twitching of the body, twisting of the body, wriggling the fingers and toes, when you open or close your eyelids, when you roll your eyes, when you turn your head. So these are all caused by the wind element running throughout the body. Okay? Also, if your mind is sensitive, you may feel in parts of the body there are very tiny vibrations all over the body. You can feel especially in the palm of your hand or the sole of your feet. You pay attention, you bring your attention very carefully, you feel, make your mind sensitive, you can feel very tiny vibrations going on. So even here, everywhere you put your mind there, you can feel very tiny microscopic vibrations all the time going on. Okay? At night when you're lying down on the bed, very relaxed, you can feel very clearly. The body is not completely still. I mean, externally you're still, internally a lot of tiny movement going on. Especially when you're very relaxed, you feel this very clearly. Okay? So when you are relaxed, the wind element flows smoothly throughout the body. Okay? So you feel comfortable, you feel healthy. Okay? When you lie down to sleep, you are so relaxed, you can fall asleep very easily. Okay? So, but sometimes you are stressed out. Your mind is stressed out, your body also a lot of tension. Then this wind element in the body got jammed. Because you are not relaxed enough. Then you feel a lot of stiffness, tension, discomfort all over the body. You try to sleep, you cannot fall asleep easily. There's so much tension all over. So throughout our body also, there are this wind element all the time flowing through. So if this wind element is not balanced, if it's either too strong or too weak, then it can give rise to all kinds of health issues. So it's a wind problem. Okay, then the last one, the last of the internal wind element is the in-out breath. Okay, this is what you note during when you note Anapana. Okay, so all these 6 internal wind element, you can notice them at one time or another during your practice. Okay, so it's not difficult to discern them once you understand what is wind element, the nature of support. Now, one important point to note is that during the Dhamma talk, we may be talking about all the different nature of the different dhammas, different mental physical nature that may arise in your experience. Okay? So we have explained about the earth element, wind element, their nature. We'll also be explaining about fire element, water element. Okay? Then also feeling, consciousness, dhammas. Okay? So, but while you're meditating, okay, don't go searching for this nature. So we explain to you so that you are more aware when they arise in your experience. Okay, but when you are in the middle of noting, don't go searching for them. Where is the hardness? Where is the support, and so on. Okay, so just go about noting as usual. So as you are noting object, the rising, falling, sitting, touching, lifting, pushing, placing. Okay, you are noting this object, this nature, hardness, softness, support, heat, cold, and so on. If they happen to appear in the moment and they are prominent, then you take note. Okay? You note them. If they are not there, don't go searching for them. Okay? You note whatever is prominent in your experience in the moment. Okay? What is present right now, clearly. Okay? So in Vipassana meditation, you note what is there. Okay? What is not there, you don't worry about it. You don't go searching for it, or worse, you don't go making it happen. Okay? So you have to note things exactly as they are. Okay? What is there, you note. Okay? Okay. Next, we talk about fire element. Okay, so again, like the earth and the wind element, in practical experience, you discern fire element through its nature. Okay, and its nature is simply the nature of heat. Heat. Okay, so that heat is fire element itself. Okay, yeah. But again, this nature of heat is relative. Okay, so just like earth element is relative. Okay, hardness, softness. So here also, not just heat, but heat and cold. Both are fire element. Right now, you're sitting here in the air-conditioned room. You feel coolness. So that coolness that you feel, that is the fire element. Okay? So when fire element is strong, you experience it as heat. It's hot. Okay? But when it's weak, then you experience it as cold. Okay? So right now you're experiencing a weak fire element. Okay? So sometimes you hear the teachers, they talk about hot fire and cold fire. Okay? So both fire also burns. Hot fire can burn, that one you know. Okay? But cold fire also can burn. It can burn terribly also. When the cold is extreme. Like in the cold countries, in the middle of the winter when it's very, very cold, especially if the wind is blowing and you do not take precaution to cover yourself properly, then you may suffer from frostbite. Okay? It can be very terrible. Some people lose their finger, lose their ears due to this. Okay? So cold fire also can burn. Okay? So basically fire element is temperature. heat or cold. And again, it's a very simple quality. You can discern everywhere in your body, not just on the surface of the skin, internally also you can feel. So it's a very simple quality. You don't need to think about it. You touch something, it's hot, the mind immediately knows it's hot. If it's cold, immediately the mind knows it's cold. Don't even have to think. So vipassana, when you know the object, you don't think about the object. You don't analyze. You simply observe it as it is. Keep observing it continuously, repeatedly, moment to moment to moment. As you keep observing it, the mind becomes sharper, sharper, clearer, clearer. Then spontaneously the mind will understand by itself. It's nature. So vipassana is an insight knowledge. Right? Insight is intuitive. It's not intellectual. Intellectual means you use your mind to think, to analyze. You apply logic. You make inference and so on. You use the power of your intellect. But vipassana is intuitive. It means it arises spontaneously, without thinking. How does it arise? You have to keep observing. See clearly, see until when the mind is clear enough, spontaneously, you will understand. Now here again, Venerable Sariputta, he mentioned 4 kinds of internal fire element. So first is fire elements that heat up the body. And since there is hot fire and cold fire, by extension you can also say the fire element that cools down the body. And so this is the fire element that causes the body to become warm, hot, or to cool down the body. So you experience this as the normal sensation of heat and cold on the body. So you're like in a hot afternoon, you're very hot, you go and meditate outside, so you can feel heat wave hitting the body. So as heat wave hit the body again and again, you notice the body starts to warm up, become hotter and hotter. So you note it, heat. You note it carefully. Your mind is sharp enough. You may be able to notice that the heat is not static. There's fluctuation in its intensity. One moment is very intense, next moment not so intense. So it goes up and down. It varies. So if your mind is really very sharp, you may even be able to discern the momentary rise and fall of this heat, nature of heat. So right now, you're sitting here in the air-conditioned room. You may feel a wave of coolness, right? So you note cool. You observe carefully. You may even discern the fluctuation in this coolness. It's not static. It changes. Sometimes a bit cooler, sometimes less. It's like, especially you're under the fan, you feel this very clearly. So it changes moment to moment. Your mind is really sharp. You can even discern, appear, disappear. breaks up moment to moment. Okay? But the heat can also be what is generated internally. Okay? So, like if you wrap your body in a shawl, so after a while you feel warm inside. So you can note that warm. Again, if you discern carefully, you can see the change, the fluctuation, the arising, disappearing of the heat. Okay? It's like it's radiating. So you can discern this also when you, with the food and drinks that you consume. Like when you drink hot water, so as you put a cup to your mouth, you can feel the warmness touching the lips. So as the water flows into the mouth, you can feel the warmness spreading throughout the mouth. And you swallow, you can feel entering spreading to the throat, and then down until you reach the stomach, and then from there it can be spread throughout the body. Okay? So food also. So when you take food, you can feel this depending on the food that you take. Okay? If it's warmness, warm food, you can feel the warmness. Okay? So like over here, the morning is not so cold. You go to some meditation center, especially you go to Burma in the cold season, even in Yangon itself, in the morning can be very cold. Right? So in the morning, before you had any food, because you haven't been eating since yesterday afternoon, so you may feel a bit cold in your body. So sometimes if you are a weak body, you can even shiver. Morning meditation before breakfast, you sit there, shiver. Then you can feel, you cannot cold, or you cannot shivering. Is it the same, shivering and the cold? It's not the same. Different nature. Okay? Different elements. The cold is the fire element. The shivering is actually the wind element. So nothing is sharp, you can tell there's two different nature. Okay? But related. Okay? Cause effect. Okay? And after that, breakfast time come. So you sit down, you look at the food, but they're still chanting. You have to wait. Okay? You have to note. But you notice, once you take the food, the moment you put a morsel of food inside, you start chewing, you feel the heat start spreading through the body. Okay? So after a few morsels of food, you start to feel the body become warm enough. So you start to warm up. With each morsel you take, it become warmer and warmer. So at the end of your meal, you feel warm and comfortable. So you can note all this process happening slowly. As you chew, as you swallow, you feel the heat radiating, spreading. Now, the second of the internal fire element is the fire element that causes aging. Okay? So it causes the body to age. So aging here also means growing and maturing. Okay? So you said the other day, the moment the baby is conceived in the womb, it's already aging. Okay? The process of aging begins from conception. The moment there's birth, aging begins. Okay? So, say from one cell, the zygote is split into two, from 2 into 4, 4 into 8, and so on. So it's changing, it's developing, it's growing, maturing. Okay? So, but we always avoid using the word aging until we have no more choice. And you see white hair, okay lah, aging. Before that, no, I'm still developing, maturing. So a fire element is also responsible for growth, maturity, aging of material things. Okay? So a body can grow, plants can grow, fruit can ripen because of fire element. Okay? So so growth, maturing and aging is a process, a slow change of the rupa materiality, which finally end with decay and breakdown of the body. Okay? So it's a very slow process. Okay? So therefore it's difficult to discern in your practice. Okay? But you can note also the moment to moment aging. Okay? You see, when materiality arises, the moment it arises, it changes, it disappears. That change is aging. Okay? The arising is birth. Disappearance is death. Okay? Yogi are observing birth, aging, death, moment to moment, microscopic level. Okay? But this process of aging due to fire element is very slow. Okay? So usually you don't discern it in your retreat. Okay? But if you are mindful, you have habit of mindfulness, you are in tune with the changes in your body, then you may notice how year after year, due to the daily exposure to heat and cold, there's a gradual change, gradual aging, breaking down of the body through the years. Okay? So some of you here 70s, 60s, 50s and so on. So you think back to the good old days, when you were in your 20s. How's the body compared to now? Very wonderful. At that time you feel invincible. Youthful energy. Your body is very strong. So you don't fall sick easily. You can work until late at night, have a few hours of sleep. Next morning you wake up, you just jump out of bed and start working again. Okay? So you come to your 30s, still okay. Still have that youthful energy. Okay? So once you hit 40s, you start to feel a little bit. Start some deterioration begin to appear, but not so much. 40s still not so bad. Come 50s, it become clearer. Okay. Then you come to your 60s, even worse. Come 70s, slowly going downhill. 80s go down very fast. Okay? So year after year, decade after decade, you see the changes in the body due to aging. So this caused by the fire element. Okay? your daily exposure. Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. Even you see, we exposed to this fire element. Even a huge mountain will one day be reduced to just sand. So that's the power of the fire element. Okay. Then the third one is the fire element that burns up the body. So this is an intense form of fire element. Okay, so very excessive, intense heat. Okay? So you experience it when you get fever, for example. Like if you get malaria. So a person who get malaria, so they go through this cycle. Sometimes feel body very, very hot, is burning, very, very high fever. Okay, and then suddenly you can swing. You start to feel very, very cold until you can shiver. Okay? So it goes back and forth, back and forth. Okay? Very intense fire element. Okay? So this can also be caused by the mind. So when you are very, very angry, very intense anger, you feel your blood hot, boiling. So you start to sweat. Sometimes you feel pain in the heart because it's burning. Okay, so in very extreme case, the fire element so extreme, it burn your heart. So you can even die because of it. Okay. Now, externally, you can also experience this. Like when you go under the sun, you get this sunburn. Okay, or you're exposed to extreme cold. As we said just now, you get frostbite. Okay? So this is very extreme, excessive, intense fire element. It burns up the body. And then the last one is the digestive heat, the fire element that digests the food or the drink that you consume. Okay, so this is a form of fire element. Okay, so you experience this when you're hungry, in the late evening or early morning before breakfast. So you're hungry, you're not hungry, you can feel something burning in the stomach. Okay, or you can feel a sensation of warmth there. Okay, so that is a fire element, digestive heat. Okay, according to the commentary, this digestive heat is kamaja rupa. Okay, is born of or originated from karma. Okay, it's produced by karma. So if your digestive heat is the result of unwholesome karma, then it's imbalanced. Okay? It's either too strong or too weak. Okay? It's too strong, then you're always hungry. It burns through all the food that you eat very, very fast. Now you eat 2 hours later or 1 hour later, even you're hungry already. Okay, so you're like the hungry ghost, always hungry. So, but if your digestive is too weak, then the food that you eat is not well digested. Okay, not digested properly. So because of this, you cannot derive enough energy from the food. Okay, so you always feel weak, not enough energy. Okay, so you also do not get enough nutrients from the food. So you may suffer from malnourishment. Okay, so all kinds of disease can arise due to malnourishment. But you have good karma, your digestive heat is balanced, not too weak, not too strong, just the right proportion. Okay? So food is that you take is digested evenly, not too fast, not too slow. Okay? So your energy and nutriment are released on the food into your body at the right proportion. Okay? So you feel energetic, you feel healthy. Mm. Okay, so then the last one is the water element. Okay? That's Apo Dhatu. Now, water element again. It's not literally water. Just like wind element is not literally wind. Okay? So you say that if you put your hand into a water, you don't really feel the water element. Okay? So if you put inside, what do you feel? You feel the temperature, right? So it's warm or it's cool. That is the fire element. Okay? You feel the water soft. That is the earth element. Okay? You move your hand around, you feel the support, the pressure against your hand. Okay? That is the wind element. Okay? But you don't really feel the water element. Okay? So what is the water element? Okay? So it's cohesion, nature of cohesion. Okay? So when you add water to flour or to cement, at first water or cement is just powder dispersed everywhere, right? So when you add water to it, mix it up, they bind together. There's cohesion there. So that's due to the water element. Okay? Now cohesion is when water element is weak. Okay? When it's strong, it flows. Okay? It's fluid. Flows or it disperses. Okay? So you can experience the dispersion like some yogis when they report the walking meditation, when you place your foot down, sometimes you feel like it's spread out. So that is the water element. Okay? So when your body is tense or relaxed, like you can also feel. So like you clench your fists very tightly. You can feel that's binding together, things holding together. Yeah. Okay. You relax it, you see it disperses, it spreads out. Okay. But usually you don't notice this because it's overshadowed by a more predominant element, the wind element. Okay. So because water element is a subtle materiality. Okay. You also feel like when it's sticky. Somebody mop the floor, after that you go and do walking meditation. You feel sticky. Okay? Also, you feel it in the sensation flowing, trickling, oozing. So it is not you discern when you're sweating, or when there's mucus flowing down. Okay, when there's tears. Okay, when the saliva flowing. Okay, so the urine and so on. Okay, so flowing, trickling, oozing. Okay, also wetness, dampness. Okay, so and you notice When there's wetness and dampness, the materiality is invigorated. Okay? That is also due to the nature of the water element. So when a hot afternoon, your body materiality feels very oppressive. It has no vigor at all. Okay? Then you go and shower. After shower, you feel the materiality is reinvigorated. There's vigor, there's vitality. Okay? That's due to the water element. It's like it rejuvenate. But usually water element is subtle. Okay? So therefore it's difficult to discern because it's usually overshadowed by the grosser elements. And the other three elements that are grosser. Okay? Especially wind element, it predominates over bodily experiences. Okay? Okay, so we have these four elements. So just to recap, so earth element is nature, hardness, softness, roughness, smoothness. Okay? So wind element is the nature support. It always usually comes with sensation like pressure, pushing, tightness, stiffness, tension, movement. Okay? And fire element is simply nature of heat and cold. Okay? And then water element is this, cohesion, binding, or dispersing, fluid, flowing. It's wetness, dampness. Right? So these are the nature of the four elements. Okay? And you can discern them in the physical body. Okay? If you pay attention. Now, but besides this, you also experience elements through what is called their mode of appearance, akara. So, and there are two modes of appearance of the elements. Okay? So lightness and heaviness. Okay? So lightness is more of the wind element and the fire element. Okay? Heaviness is more of the fire and water element. Okay? So you can experience heaviness, lightness. Okay? Is the mode of appearance of the elements. Okay? How they appear to the mind. So these four elements, you can discern them, as we said, in every single part of the body. Okay? But in the beginning, in order to develop your strength of mindfulness and concentration, you don't send your mind to every part of the body. Okay? You learn to note the elements as they arise with the primary objects. Okay? Arising, falling, sitting, touching, lifting, pushing, placing. Okay? And also in the daily activities, all the activities, physical activities that you are doing. Okay? So you first learn to note the elements through a primary object. Okay? And for beginners, usually in the beginning, attention, when you note the primary object, attention usually goes more to the concepts of the object. Like you note rising, falling, you notice the form and the shape of the abdomen or the chest, okay? Or the direction of its movement, up, down, and so on, a manner of movement, fast, slow, short, long. Okay? So in the beginning, usually attention goes more to the concepts, because concept is something that everybody is familiar with. Okay? So mind naturally gravitates towards the concept, even though it's not that you cannot discern all this material nature. So especially after we explain this nature, now you are more aware of them. But due to force of habit, the mind will usually run back to the concepts. Okay, that is okay in the beginning. Okay, in fact, the basic instruction, you say not rising, falling. Rising, falling actually is a concept. Okay, concept of direction, up, down, up, down. Okay. So in the beginning, usually you note concepts. Okay. So, but through continuous, energetic, precise noting, this mindfulness concentration develops, and as it develops, clarity also develops. The mind becomes clearer and clearer. As the mind becomes clearer, you find the attention begin to pick up more clearly the sabhava, the material nature. So attention begin to shift more and more away from concepts towards the natural characteristic of the materiality. Okay? So for example, you're not rising, falling, beginning, you note form, shape, and so on. Okay? So, but more and more as your practice develop, you begin to discern clearly and distinctly with each noting bare nature, the wind element. Okay? So at first you just follow up, down, up, down, up, down. When the mind begins to slow down, you begin to discern more and more carefully, you naturally begin to pick up more and more clearly. Every time you note nature, pushing, pressure, tightness, expansion, tension, and so on. Okay? So as the mindfulness, concentration, and clarity develops, your attention moves more and more towards the bare nature of materiality, away from concepts. Okay? And as the mind becomes more and more fixed on the bare nature, okay, gradually the true nature, impermanent, suffering, non-self, can also be discerned by the mind. Now, of course, when with the development of mindfulness, concentration, and clarity, you discern the material nature, rupa sabhava, not only in the primary object, also in the secondary object. If the secondary object is a physical object, you also discern in the secondary object the material nature. Okay? So that means every physical object you know has just this physical nature. There's elements. Okay? There come a time when with sufficient development, every physical experience noted. Okay? The rising, falling, sitting, touching, pain, and so on. Okay? You notice only bare nature of the elements, the hardness, softness, pressure, tightness, heat, cold, and so on. Okay? Every moment you know there's only element, bare nature. Okay? So then gradually the idea of a body with a definite form and shape also disappear. Okay? And the idea of a person tied up with this body also disappear. Then what remains just bare nature of the element, moment to moment to moment. Okay? No body, no person, just elements. Okay? Yeah. And in the section on the four elements in Satipatthana Sutta, Buddha gave a simile describing this. Okay? So he says, just as though a skilled butcher or his apprentice has slaughtered a cow and was seated at the crossroads with the cow cut up into pieces. Okay? So too a bhikkhu reviews the same body, however it is placed, however it is disposed by way of the elements. Thus, in this body, there are the earth element, water element, fire element, and the wind element. Okay? So, so what does this mean? Okay? So you think of the butcher. Okay? So before he slaughtered the cow, he looked at the cow. In his mind, the perception is this is a cow, right? So, and even after he slaughtered a cow, before he cut it up into pieces, you look at it, it's still a cow. So then he wants to sell the meat, right? So sell the meat, he has to bring it to the market. So here the Buddha says the crossroads. So in the old days, in the city, the crossroad is where the busiest part of town. Is where the market is. So you bring it there, cut it into pieces. Okay. But once you cut it into pieces, you look at it, it's no longer a cow. It's just pieces of meat. Okay. So when he sell, he's not selling a cow. He's selling meat, pieces of meat. Okay. So similarly, yogi, before you meditate, you see, look at this body. It's the body. The head here, the feet there, and so on. Okay. So then you meditate, you notice the element again and again. It's like you are slicing it, cutting it. So resolving it into just elements. Okay. So you keep noting moment after moment, just elements. Then you don't no longer see the body. Okay? The body, the idea of body disappear. Okay? Idea of person connected with this body also disappear. That's just every moment, just elements. Okay? So in this way, you see the body is just nature, physical nature, rupa dhamma. There's no person, no being, no self here. Right? Okay, so that's kaya, a body. Now, next one is Vedana. Next object, Vedana. So, Vedana is usually translated as feelings. Okay? Sometimes they translate as sensation, but then it can be confused with physical sensation. Okay, which is not Vedana. Physical sensation are the rupa or kaya. Okay? They are the elements. Okay? So feeling, even feeling, actually you have to be careful of this translation. Okay? Because the English word feeling is usually used to describe emotions or moods of mind. Right? Say I feel anxious, I feel hurt, I feel disgusted, or I feel peaceful. So I feel bored, or I feel satisfied, contented. Okay? So these are various states of mind, emotions, modes of mind. Okay? These are not Vedana. Okay? So in terms of the mental states, the cetasikas, okay, they are represented by other cetasikas. Okay? Like we say, I feel hurt or I feel disgusted. That is dosa. Okay? That's not Vedana. Okay? You say I feel peaceful. That is pasadi. Peacefulness or tranquility of mind. You say I feel satisfied, I feel contented. That's aloba. So they are not Vedana. So what is Vedana? Vedana refers to the mental state So it's a mental state. It's a cetasika. It's a mental state that experiences the taste of the object. Okay? So every time when you experience an object, okay? So the object has certain taste, right? It can be pleasant or unpleasant, or neutral, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Okay? So Vedana is that mental state that experiences this taste of the object, experiences the pleasantness or unpleasantness or the neutralness of the object. Okay? That is its nature. Is sabhava. So generally, there are three types of feeling: sukha vedana, dukkha vedana, and adukkha sukha vedana. Okay? So sukha vedana is pleasant feeling. Okay? Dukkha vedana, unpleasant feeling. Adukkha sukha vedana is neither unpleasant nor pleasant. Okay? Neutral. So sukha vedana, pleasant feeling, is the experience of pleasantness. Okay? Dukkha vedana is the experience of unpleasantness. Okay? And then the adukkha sukha vedana or upekkha vedana, neutral feeling, is the experience of neutralness of the object. Okay? So Vedana is an experience. You have to bear this in mind. Okay? So experience something, experience the taste, the pleasantness, and so on. Okay? So because the experience, that means it is a mental phenomenon. Okay? It's not physical. Vedana is not physical. Okay? Vedana is always an experience in the mind. Okay? Because only the mind can experience. Okay? So physical materiality, rupa, they do not experience anything. Okay? So Vedana is a nama dhamma, is a mental nature. Okay? But even though it's a mental nature, but it can arise with bodily experience. Okay? That means it arises through the experience at the body door. Okay? So in this case, we call it kayika vedana. Okay? Bodily feeling. Okay? But even though we call it bodily feeling, it does not mean that it is physical. Okay? It simply means it's tied up with bodily experience. It arises when you feel something in your body. Okay? Example, when noting pain. Okay? So you sit, after sitting very long, you start to feel your leg very hard. So because you sit long there, it becomes harder and harder. Okay? So extreme hardness may arise. Okay? So this extreme hardness, what is it? Earth element. Okay? So it's earth element, that means it's a rupa. Okay? So, but even as you are experiencing this rupa, this hardness, extreme hardness, in your mind you experience the discomfort, or the pain, or the unpleasantness connected with that hardness. Okay? So that experience of discomfort or pain or unpleasantness, that is Vedana. Okay? So if you note that mental experience of discomfort or pain, you are noting Vedana. Okay? So if you note the hardness itself, that is, you are noting the rupa, the kaya. Okay? So you are noting sharp, precise, and clear. In the moment, you can realize, when you are noting this experience, you can realize, there's more than one nature present. Okay? There's this hardness, which is rupa. That is one nature. Okay? And that is the nama, the experience of unpleasantness or pain. Okay? That is another nature. Okay? Two different nature. One is rupa, one is nama. Okay? So you are noting sharp, precise. You can notice there are two nature present in that experience. Okay? Your mind is clear, you can realize also. You continuously note. Spontaneously you realize the cause effect between the two. Okay? Because of the hardness, that is the experience of pain. Okay? Your notice is really very clear, sharp, precise. You may even notice how these two are arising, disappearing, moment to moment. You can discern, realize even their nature, impermanent, suffering, non-self. Okay? But if your noting is not sharp, not precise, not clear, then these two different nature got mixed up together. Okay? You get confused and mixed up together, and you lump them together in your experience, and that's the same thing. There's no difference between the hardness and the experience of pain. Okay? So the pain is the hardness is the pain. You cannot discern the two different nature clearly. Okay? You may even take the whole experience and then you start to think, I am in pain. The I start to come in, the idea of an I, a person. And my leg is so painful. Idea of the leg come in. Okay? So, and because you cannot see the change, and you think, oh, the pain does not change. It's permanent. I'm going to live like this forever. So, now of course you can also have experience of bodily comfort or bodily pleasure too. So, like when you're in the aircon room, so you feel there's a cool breeze blowing. Okay? So why is this cool breeze? It's rupa. It's a fire element. Okay? But as you are experiencing this cool breeze, in your mind you experience comfort, pleasure connected with the soft, with the coolness. Okay? So that is Vedana. Okay? The experience of pleasantness, of comfort. Okay? So again, if you not precisely, clearly, you can notice, you realize there are two different nature present. One is rupa, the coolness. One is nama, the experience of comfort. Okay? There are two different nature, Vedana and the fire element. There are two different nature. Okay? Your mind is sharp, precise, clear. You can notice them. Notice this very clearly. Okay? And notice the cause effect between them. Okay? Because of the coolness, there is comfort. Right? So, and again, you're really very sharp, precise. You can even see them arising, disappearing, moment to moment. You can even realize their nature, impermanent, suffering, non-self. Okay? But if you are not noting carefully, you're noting carelessly, then the experience will not appear clearly. Okay? All the different nature mix up together, lump together. There's no difference between the coolness and the comfort. The coolness is the comfort, comfort is the coolness. Okay? So you may take the whole experience and think, oh, I'm feeling cool, I'm so happy. And you develop attachment. This is so wonderful. May it always be like this. everywhere I go. Okay? So this is bodily feeling. It arises with the experience at the body though. Okay? But feeling can also arise unconnected with bodily experience. Okay? That means it arises with the other sense door. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, and the mind door. Okay? So, for example, at the mind door, maybe you're meditating halfway, and then because your noting is not continuous, suddenly a memory arises. Thought of a memory of a past unpleasant experience arise. Okay? So your mindfulness is not fast enough. Immediately, it arises. You don't know. Immediately you get caught up with the memory. You get entangled with the memory. Okay? Moment you entangle, immediately the mind experience unpleasantness due to the memory. Then what we call domanassa arise. Unpleasant mental feeling arise. Okay? So then this usually arise. Domanassa arise with dosa. Okay? So at that time strong aversion may arise. Okay? So see, there's two different nature. One is the dosa, very violent, hits out at the object, reject it, try to run away. And then domanassa is the vedana, unpleasant mental feeling. Feel unpleasant. Two different nature. Okay? Once aversion arises, the mind gets sucked into the unpleasant experience. You get caught up in it. It's like you're reliving the memory again. Okay? So, but if your mindfulness is quick, the moment the memory arises, you're able to note it. Okay? Note it immediately. The moment it arises, mindfulness note it. The moment there's mindfulness, the mind immediately become detached from it. Remember, mindfulness comes with detachment. So the moment you note, the mind detached from the memory. So the mind becomes untouched by the memory. The memory is like just another passing mental object. So it just comes, it just goes. The mind does not hold on to it as me or mine. So mind is detached. It's like you see a strong wind blow past. You just let it blow past, then it's gone. So because you are able to know it immediately and become detached from it, then no unpleasant feeling arise. Okay. So instead, there's just this mindfulness and accurate clarity, sati sampajanya, present, that holds the mind steady and view the whole object with equanimity. Okay? And when there's equanimity, a neutral feeling arise. So instead of unpleasant feeling, because of noting, the mind is equanimous, there's neutral feeling. Okay? The mind remains steady, calm, quiet, okay? Not shaken by the unpleasant memory that arise. Okay? Let's say your mindfulness is slow. You're not able to note it immediately. The moment it arises, you cannot note it immediately. Okay? So because you don't note it, unpleasant feeling arise. Right? You get caught in it. So dosa arise, domanassa arise. You feel the unpleasant feeling arise. Okay? And then at that point, the mind notes. Okay? So you can note the unpleasant feeling immediately. You note it immediately, it disappears. You're noting sharp, precise, energetic. The moment you note it, the unpleasant feeling disappear. Okay, when it disappear, again, mind become detached. Equanimity again arise with neutral feeling towards the object. So again, the mind becomes steady, calm, quiet. Okay. So which one better? Not immediately or not after unpleasant feeling arise? Of course, immediately. Because you're slow in noting, that means the mind got shaken for a bit. Okay? Destabilized for a bit. So, but you can note it immediately. The object doesn't shake the mind. Okay, the mind remain equanimous with neutral feeling. Okay, but of course the best is you cannot so continuous that the memory have no chance to arise at all. Noting is so continuous, moment to moment. There's no gap at all in the noting. So there's no chance at all for any wandering thoughts, memory to arise, because the mind is so busy noting continuously. Then the mind become really very steady, very stable. Okay? So not just at the mind door. So similarly, if you are not mindful when you experience seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting something unpleasant, again aversion may arise with domanassa, dosa domanassa arise. So unpleasant feeling arise. Okay. So if you are mindful, your mindfulness is very fast. And the moment it arises, you note the object impinges, the unpleasant object impinges on the senses. You note it immediately. Unpleasant sound hits. The moment it hits, you note it immediately. The mindfulness there, the mind become detached from the sound, from the experience of the sound. When it's detached, it's able to view it with equanimity, neutral feeling that arises with equanimity. So the mind remains steady, calm, quiet. Okay, and even if at first you are not mindful, your mindfulness is slow. Okay, then aversion, dosa, domanassa arise again. Okay, but if the moment the unpleasant feeling arises, you can note it immediately. The unpleasant feeling disappear. The dosa also disappear. Okay, once it disappear, because of the mindful noting, as detachment, as equanimity. Again, the mind goes back to more neutral feeling. Okay. So in neutral feeling, with equanimity, with neutral feeling, the mind is more steady, more calm, more quiet. Okay. So your noting mind should be like this, always steady, calm, quiet, noting. So this equanimity with neutral feeling can arise with each clear, mindful, detached noting. That's why instructions say you must note when you see, not seeing, when hear, not hearing, and so on. Every sense experience, note. Okay, and you note the mindfulness is steady. There's detachment. There's equanimity. The mind is steady with neutral feeling. Okay. Now, of course, there can also be somanassa, pleasant mental feeling. It can arise also. Okay, pleasant memory, or somebody tell you a good news you hear, or you see, smell, taste a pleasant object. Okay, so manasa can arise, pleasant mental feeling can arise. With pleasant mental feeling, that means it can arise even sometimes with piti. So mind become bubbly. Which one better? The mind bubbly or the mind calm, peaceful? Peaceful is better. It's more stable. That's why between piti and sukha, sukha is better. That's why the higher jhana is without piti but with sukha. But better than sukha. Sukha is more blissful, but still there is some movement in the mind. That's why the fourth jhana is equanimity. So the mind is not bubbly, doesn't move, very steady. So without noting a pleasant object that arises, somanasa, pleasant mental feeling may arise, and we may arise with attachment, with delight, which is a hindrance. So therefore, every time it arises, make sure that you note it, so that the mind remains steady with detachment, with equanimity, then with neutral feeling. And so with each kind of Vedana that arises, you can note it clearly, precisely. You are able to discern it as it is. It's just a mental nature, experience of pleasantness or unpleasantness or neutralness. It's just a mental nature of experiencing the taste of the object. And there's no I experiencing. That's just a mental nature that experience. Nobody feels. It's just this mental nature that feels. And if you are clear enough, when you're noting sharp, precise, clear enough, when you're not Vedana, you can even discern this momentary nature. How it arises, disappear, moment to moment. Its nature of impermanent, suffering, non-self may also appear clearly. Okay, so Vedananupassana, noting of Vedana is important in our practice, because it brings stability and continuity to our practice. Because if you do not note the Vedana as they arise, your mind can be scattered by the defilements. So pleasant feeling arise, you don't note, attachment can arise, desire can arise, and then your mind got thrown out of the noting. So unpleasant feeling arise, you don't note, aversion arise. Again the mind got thrown out of noting. So it disrupts your meditation. Neutral feeling arise, you don't note, because it's so peaceful. After a while the mind goes into this state of delusion, not clear, blur. So again your practice got interrupted. So you don't know Vedana, your practice will not be stable, not steady, will not be continuous. That's why Vedana arise, is very prominent. You have to note pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling. In the beginning is more of the unpleasant feeling, especially connected with the body. But as your practice develops, there can also be comfort in the body. There can be also pleasantness in the mind. And of course, with dukkha jnana can also be very strong unpleasantness in the mind. So you have to note this feeling, note diligently, make sure the mind is not thrown out. Note until you see the nature of the Vedana. because they also arise, disappear, they're impermanent, suffering, non-self. Okay? You don't note them, you get attached to them, then you identify with Vedana. I feel wonderful. No, I feel lousy. Identify with Vedana. Okay, we stop here.